wanted to end our lesson, our class, on the fact that you have to enjoy the journey when you are playing with brushes. And I wanted to give this kind of conclusion of the class that we learned so much. Hopefully, you learned some new tips and techniques to further your art around. And I want to just kind of give you a recap of how what we did. So this one was the beach scene. Remember the beach scene where we put Frisket masking and then we added the brushes. That was really fun. And then all I did was just stamp the the sentiment onto that card panel with my Misty and the a sentiment that I liked. This one was a color play landscape. If you remember, I wanted to really work on the sky, and then we had that green in the back, and I thought the wolf stamp with the silhouette stamp in the stamped on the card panel would be a really nice card for somebody. And then here are some card panels that haven't actually been into cards, but as soon as I can, I'm going to make them into cards. This one I'm just going to keep as it is. I might even make this into an art journal piece. We like to go to the lake and play on the lake, and so this reminds me of the lake. So I might just keep this as an art journal and then journal our memory. I haven't decided yet, but that's the wonderful thing about art is you can save it for later if wanted. But anyways, this is the same sort of thing with the silhouette forest. These two cards. Oh, instead of using the wolf, I did the silhouette horse with the tree in the background, and I can't wait to put that on as a card panel. Here's another wolf one with kind of the same thing. I think this actually came from the same um, nope. I was thinking maybe the colors came from the same panel, but it did not. Anyways, and then we went on to Lavinia stamps and stamped, showed you how to kind of use stamps in a different way and to layering the stamps just to get a neat background. Um, Here's another one of the forests that I think will be really neat. I think I might even stamp a sentiment right there. I haven't decided yet. I got time. I don't like to rush into making all the cards unless I know exactly what I need for that. So maybe a nice little thinking of you right here might be nice. I don't know. I don't know, but I do love this, so I know I'm going to give it away to somebody. I just don't know what or why yet. But I'm loving that yellow right here with the oranges and the reds. It was really a fun color play with that one. Um, and then that one with a nice it's just a nice background. This one's also nice. That was a color play that I wasn't expecting the black to just be perfect right there, but it does and it works. So we're going with it, right? Um, this one was it was a color play with playing with brush strokes first, and then I was hoping to make that into a field of flowers if you remember, and then maybe that was going to be the sun, but I love this green, and I thought, oh, that stamp would be perfect for this with the little, I don't know, these almost remind me of like little seeds blowing in the wind. So I thought, yep, we'll use this stamp for this, and that works. Again, another silhouette forest with the horse. Uh, it works. That one is where I stamped it and then colored it. So kind of the same thing, but instead of color play first, I stamped it, then played with my reds and my red and my yellow to get that. Um, this one was a fun demonstration with with the yellow like sun or moon, probably sun. It's intuitive, so it doesn't really matter, right? And you're just playing with it with the colors, so it's fun. And then this one, I love how the mica powder just kind of goes over all the orange, and it reminds me. It's just a really, I think, a beautiful card. So those are all of our color play and landscape cards that we did. Holy moly, that was a lot, huh? Then we get into our sentiments where we stamped the panel first and then made all the colors do wonderful things. And so this one was one of the first ones we did. And then I showed you how to use brush strokes to really kind of add a lot of drama to it. And then we went on to really kind of controlling our brushes where we wanted the brushes to go. And that one is a really fun card too. That was with like a red and a new gamboge, and I think was a OST red. This was sandstone and gold, and I still think that's just gorgeous. It's going to be a very beautiful, beautiful card to give to somebody. I almost want to give it away as like a wedding card. Celebrate your marriage, which I might do. This one reminds me of a birthday with just the greens and the blues and the yellows popping out, like celebrate. And then happy birthday, of course, with all the fun colors. And we're playing with brushes. That's what it's all about. Let the brushes and the stamp marry together. So those were fun to make. Oh, and we can't forget about our rainbow kindness card. And that works. It's a little more trickier because you got your 4 different quadrants of colors and you want them to all mesh well together. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, but it's still a really fun card to send out to somebody. All right, on to some stamping. Remember, we stamped some florals and then colored them, painted them. And that was a set. And all I did was use some black pattern paper for the back of this. You can get it, I get them at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, craft stores, scrapbooking stores, you name it, wherever there's paper, I'll buy. And this is from Basic Gray. And they like their patterns are usually pretty simple and easy, but it's fun. So we had those 3 different demonstrations, and I decided not to put any sentiments on because I really just want the brushes to be the card, and I will personally write or even put a sentiment right here saying, happy birthday or whatever the occasion needs to be. I like to have my cards blank until I know what I need to use them for. If you're not that way, by all means, stamp to your little heart's content inside the card. It is all to you. And then, of course, I did the 2 different tulips, same stamp, just, and really almost the same technique, but different colors can really change up the way you present that stamp because you can get the more elegant white, or you can get the really artistic purple and green. So, I love them both. I don't have a preference. If you do, I would love to hear about which ones you're just loving. All right, then we went on to background stamps. Do you remember the background stamps with the stars? And even like I call this a background stamp because it's a one stamp, it's one big stamp, right? We also had so we did a couple of different things with the background stamps. Once we used brushes, then we glazed over the brushes and just added a couple of stars to add some interest. Same thing with this one. Instead of oranges and yellows, we did purples and blues and did the same thing with the stars. And then instead of doing a birthday one we did a birthday one, and then I did a teacher one. And it's just you change up the sentiments and you can get some really cute, really nice cards just by changing out sentiments. And I added that die, if you remember that. And, yeah. And then we have this background stamp where we just really used the colors, the bright colors to add to it. And then with the background stamp, sometimes it gets boring just using one card panel. So I cut up the card panel and then put a strip of paper in the middle just so we could, just so it can be a little bit different. I like it. It'll be a nice card to give a to someone on their retirement. And then, of course, I didn't actually show the stamp, but this is like a birthday present stamp set, and all I did was stamp. It's a background stamp like the stars and the butterflies. Um, it's the same kind of stamp. It's one big stamp, and I stamped it. Did the same thing really with that, but instead of using purple and blue, I used blue and yellow, and then I let that mix together, and then I got maybe a little bit of the emerald green to just kind of blend the two together. But same process, same thing. And then I used my little sentiment strips for this card instead of cutting it out like I did for those. But you get that. You hopefully you get the idea. If you don't get the idea, I would love to do another demo on that. That's fine. All right, now we're into the resist part of the lesson. Do you remember where we had to stamp it with some embossing ink and then put the embossing ink on the powder on and then heat set it? Well, that's what I did with this card for the background. And then I added that sentiment, the Shine Bright sentiment. Same thing here. Instead of using gold embossing powder, I used white embossing powder. And I still did the same technique with the light to dark colors. And I just let the black drip down at the very end. And I got a simple sentiment right there. This is the same thing. I used gold embossing powder and then brush out it. And then I put a nice little sentiment right there. Same thing with this one, same apply. I cut down the card panel because if you remember, it was kind of not straight. Well, I cut it and and cropped it a little bit so it was straight, and I really like that card. Yeah. Here's another one where we just embossed, we just stamped and heat embossed and then added a little bit of brushes. It was a super easy panel to make, but very stunning once it was done. This one was very much like the star technique again, where you added the dark to the floral. Um, and same thing, I just added some of the sentiment strips to these two. This one was made with gold embossing powder, stamped it and then embossed it with gold embossing powder. And then I just added a sentiment in the middle of these two because they are very, very, the stamp is like in your face, bold, and I didn't want to add too much to it, but it sure makes for a beautiful card. Then we got into kind of the fun stamping part. If you remember about this card, I stamped one daisy and then I flipped over the card panel and I put paper, I put the mask over this and then stamped this. So it looks like this daisy is on top of that daisy. And I also stamped it instead of with black archival ink or brown archival ink, I stamped it with my peony pink archival ink and then just colored it with brushes. This one and this one, if you remember, I used my stamp to stamp the brushes and then made them into cards. I also have this panel that I stamped too, and I haven't made this into a card panel yet. I will, and I will send pictures. But it's a fun way to really make for a fun background for something. Um, yeah, those are fun. And then with this one, I just stamped a brown pumpkin here, here, and then there's one actually right here too, to just kind of tie that whole picture in together. And then we used a die cut to stamp and die cut this out with the simple background of using line brushing, a line brushwork with some washes, and got this really fun card, which I'm excited to share with somebody. It makes me smile. I like it. Now we're on to the masking with stenciling and gesso. This one was the one where we did gel medium on the stencil and then put glitter on, and it was very much the same thing as this one too. Two completely different looks. I really like the black glitter. I think the black glitter really makes it. And then so we have three with the glitter, and I bet you probably were thinking you weren't going to use glitter in this class, but I was wrong. You were wrong. We did. But how fun is that to change up the color and the look of brushes with glitter? And then we used gel medium and gesso to use as masking, and that's what these are, or a resist gel medium. This was gel medium. This was gel medium. This gesso. And the gel medium acted as a mask and as a resist. This one asked, this gesso card panel acted as a resist, so you would be able to see the triangles a little bit more. But I think those are beautiful cards. I can't wait to send them out. And then lastly, here's the other gesso panel, and we specifically left this out off so we didn't have to gesso that part, so we could just stamp on the card panel and what a simple card that is. And then we had this where we added brushos to the gesso and then put the gesso on with the colors. So we used scarlet red and got this really pretty pink color. And then I used 2 dies to cut this out and then just made a strip and stamped this um, by your friendship sentiment right there and then put it together. Pretty easy and fun and very enjoyable. And then last but not least, this was the die cut one where I didn't like this card panel, but I really wanted to use it because I could. How could we save a die cut panel that we didn't really love and didn't really know what to do with? You can always put a die cut on the front of your panel. All right, I am so happy to have been able to share with you my love of brush shows. I have had so much fun coming up with this course, and as always, if you have questions, please ask them to me. No question is silly, of course, but what I really wanted you guys to get out of this class is that you can do so many wonderful things with brush shows and stamps, and your imagination can just go crazy. You can make just landscape cards. You can do just sentiment cards. I mean, there's so many fun ways to use brushes. So keep creating, keep learning how your brushes and your stamps work together, and you will come up with some amazing cards. Thank you so much for taking this class, and we will see you soon.